My impressions of a rugged phone is that apart from having this really rugged design that doesn't look pretty as compared to many other smartphones out there, they usually come with pretty poor spec sheet that is pretty slow, and they have bad displays as well, and they can't even match with entry-level smartphones sometimes. However, this one here is different. It is the OUKITEL WP16 or WP16, whichever you like to call it. It is sent to me by Banggood, a popular e-commerce site that specializes in selling phones like this. And to be honest, after using for about 2 weeks, I am pretty impressed by this phone. Now, first of all, this phone has this pretty ruggedized design, as you can see right here, so it can definitely sustain very serious drops, and even if you throw it right to the wall, it will definitely survive. Now, before I talk about the design, let's talk a little bit about specs. So right over here, this is a 6.43-inch HD Plus display that, to be honest, it actually looks pretty nice here. As you can see, the colors are actually decent and it doesn't look too pixelated. But one thing I do realize is that this display is kind of pretty hard to touch at times. The touch sampling rate is definitely not great over here. You definitely realize some lag, all right? So internally, it is powered by a MediaTek Helio P60 processor. It's not the latest SoC by MediaTek. It is a 3-year-old chip that works on a 12nm process. It has 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage, which is actually pretty impressive for this phone because usually rugged phones come with pretty bad RAM, like 4GB of RAM and probably 32GB of storage. But this one comes with 128GB of storage so that you can actually store quite a bit of things. Now, let's talk about design right now. So as you can see right here, it is a pretty rugged design. So the top and bottom are covered with a rubber bumper. So if you drop the phone, so chances are with some other phones, you might probably crack the screen already if you drop it like top down this way. But this one is a kind of like an absorber that protects the screen here. And around the screen, you do actually see a bit of a gasket here that prevents water from going in, and it also protects the screen from getting cracked. This rubber frame right over here will actually protect the phone's display. On the back here, there is a really nice water drop design, which OUKITEL calls it on their website. This is a water drop design camera. There's two cameras right over here. The main sensor is a 12-megapixel sensor, and the secondary camera sensor is not a macro or a ultra wide lens, but it is a night vision camera. It's a Sony sensor that shoots night vision images in black and white, and is supported by an infrared light sensor over here. So this is the flashlight and this is the infrared light, which you can actually see if you turn it, if you use the phone in low light. And there's a specific mode called the infrared mode inside the camera, not called night vision, where it will enable the infrared light and use the night vision camera of the OUKITEL WP16. Now below the camera bump here, there's an NFC word, and this is where the NFC contact point is, and it's actually rare to see a rugged phone that comes with an NFC contact point so that you can use it for mobile payments, and this phone will support Google Pay. So if you're in a Google Pay supported country, you can use this phone to make contactless payments. So right under here, there are a couple of icons that shows you what it can be protected against, and there's the OUKITEL branding, and finally there is an IP68 word right over here, which I would say that is a little bit inaccurate because OUKITEL claims that this phone is both IP68 and IP69K certified. So for IP69K, it can withstand even more stronger splashes like water jets and so on. So this is truly a great ruggedized phone. In other design features, at the bottom, you do have a rubber flap here that covers the USB-C port, which is actually pretty nice. The rubber flap is pretty durable, and of course, there's this little flap right over here that you gotta be careful. If you pull it too hard, it can actually come out sometime, all right? So on the left side of the phone here, you do get another flap that covers the SIM tray, all right? So you do not need any SIM ejector pin to take out the SIM tray. It is actually a dual SIM tray that you can actually just take it out easily and swap your SIM cards if you want to. Now, right below the SIM tray, there is a really nice textured orange color key. This orange is actually OUKITEL's signature color. This is in fact a smart key that you can configure to access certain functions such as accessing the camera, or you can long press to trigger Google Assistant if you want to do so. And on the right here, you get a volume rocker and a power button with a fingerprint sensor. There's no 3.5mm headphone jack around, and that makes a lot of sense because they definitely do not want any way for water or dust to go inside to the internals of the phone. The OUKITEL WP16 ships with Android 11 out of the box, and I'm really glad that the company hasn't included any bloat inside the phone, apart from the fact that it has this outdoor tool with several things such as a gradient meter, noise test, compass, magnifier, whatever all these features are. You can probably find them useful if you're the kind of person who always goes outdoors, or you work probably in a construction site, and you will find these tools to be pretty useful. All right, so this is a pretty nice UI. It's stock, it's all stock, and it's really smooth despite using a MediaTek P60 chip. Now of course, you definitely do not find this phone to be the snappiest of all, considering it is using a 3-year-old chipset. But overall, if you are using this for texting and casual web and social media browsing, it will definitely work well and smooth enough, all thanks to the 8GB of RAM that it has right inside here. So you can definitely have quite a bit of apps kept inside the memory. All right, so one thing, that this is a pretty old chipset, so you can't really expect this phone to game quite a lot because it's not a really powerful chip with a recent GPU. So do expect some lags when you play some modern game titles, and you might have to lower the graphics setting if you play some graphics intensive games. So the OUKITEL WP16 display is actually pretty okay for indoor usage, but when it comes to outdoors, I do find that it is not as bright as I would like to be. I do hope that the brightness can actually go brighter, but it just doesn't. So if you want to use this under direct sunlight, it is definitely not the best display out there. So it has a loudspeaker on the back here. It is a single speaker that sounds okay, but it's not the best compared to the rest, which is expected of a rugged phone because they can't put big speakers inside. They definitely have to make the space as little as possible so that dust and water doesn't go into the device. Now let's talk about its cameras. Even though the OUKITEL WP16 has a pretty decent 12-megapixel primary sensor on paper, image quality, to be honest, isn't the best out there, even if you compare to a modern entry-level smartphone. The camera takes okay pictures when in good lighting. Of course, you do expect a little bit of overexposing at times and a little bit of loss of detail, because this is a phone and a camera that's designed for those who doesn't really care too much about image quality and simply just want a serviceable camera for their applications such as construction workers, or even if you go inside the forest and so on. Now, what's interesting about the camera is that it supports an underwater mode. So you can definitely take this phone to do snorkeling or diving if you want to, because the camera has this underwater mode that technically locks the entire lock screen, and you can switch between the video and photo mode by just using the volume rockers, and to trigger the shutter button by simply pressing on one of the keys as well. So it's actually pretty nice to have such a camera feature on a rugged phone like this. It's pretty well thought out, but to be honest, image quality just isn't great. And that's the same for the night vision camera. Of course, the night vision camera is for those who like use the phone in total darkness, and the infrared camera definitely helps to show things that's like about 6 or 7 feet ahead of you, but if it is slightly further ahead, you definitely can't see anything already. And once you take pictures using the 20-megapixel night vision camera, there's a lot of blur, and to be honest, image quality is not detailed as well. So yeah, when you use a phone like this, you definitely don't expect great cameras out of it. As for selfies, I'm actually pretty surprised with the image quality, and that's because this is a 20-megapixel on the front here that takes really high resolution selfies, and that's actually pretty rare for a rugged smartphone. Although the OUKITEL WP16 has a really huge 10,000 mAh battery right inside, to be honest, battery life is pretty similar to a modern mid-range phone with a 5,000 mAh battery, and that's because of the MediaTek P60 chip that doesn't have really good standby times, because it is a 12 nanometer process chip. So standby times is definitely not so good on this one. So assuming if I leave this phone with Wi-Fi and 4G turned on for 8 hours during my sleeping time, the battery will dip about 4 to 5%, and to be honest, it isn't that great, because modern mid-range phones with modern processors, they will only dip about 1 to 2% during that period, and even though they have a 5,000 mAh battery. So why did OUKITEL fit such a huge battery inside? So there is a use case for that. So just in case if you're entering an area such as a forest or some places that doesn't have cellular connectivity, you can pretty much turn on airplane mode to extend the battery life of this phone. It can definitely last up to a week if you were to turn off everything that is network related, because it will definitely save power on that. So yeah, that's actually the purpose of the 10,000 mAh battery right inside. And in terms of charging, this doesn't come with any super fast charge technology, but it will still charge at a decent rate at 18 watts. So if you were to charge this phone from single digits up to 100%, do expect the phone to be fully charged within about 2 hours plus, right? That's probably the time that you're gonna get, because it's a rather huge battery that you get right inside. At this time of shooting, the OUKITEL WP16 retails at 803 ringgit or $190 at banggood.com, which you can click on the link below to purchase if you're interested in getting one. Personally, after using for this 2 weeks, I find this phone to be a solid performer. It's not the slowest rugged phone out there. It performs well on my daily web browsing and social media usage. So it doesn't necessarily mean you need to be a construction worker or someone who goes to camping to buy this phone, but it is going to be a useful device if you're someone who's really careless on using smartphones, and provided if you can handle the weight and thickness of this phone. Alright, so that's a pretty quick look at the OUKITEL WP16 and my thoughts after using it for 2 weeks. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and be sure to subscribe to our channel for more tech videos coming right up, and I will see you guys in our next video.